Hello, and welcome to another fantastic episode of Anarchy Among Friends Roundtable. The timer just started. It took that long for the timer to start. All right, I'm starting over because that's what we did. Hello. Welcome to another fantastic episode of Anarchy Among Friends Roundtable discussion. Before we get started, let me first remind you that we are covered by the gov't no government license, which allows for the use and reuse of this podcast by anyone and everyone except for governments and the bludgies thereof. You can learn more about that at bipcot.org. That is bipcot.org. We're also protected by Brandenburg v. Ohio, 1969, which ruled that the government cannot punish inflammatory speech unless that speech is, quote, directed to inciting or producing imminent lawless action and is likely to incite or produce such action. Therefore, everything said here on Anarchy Among Friends Roundtable discussion is entirely hypothetical. This is episode 119. Which what? I think it's 119. I don't even know what it's 2021. That's all I care about.
It's 22. It's 22 and then a 0 that's been changed into a 1 for the next 6 months for me is what it is. We're just gonna
you guys, I don't think I want to say 2021 because you're saying 2021. It didn't fucking win.
Oh, 2020 definitely won. We didn't win.
It didn't.
We didn't win. 2020 definitely won.
I refuse to accept that in my mind, that 2021.
They're already talking about all these volcanoes starting to wake up again that have been dormant for years and everything else. And I'm like, see, everyone was like, oh, 2021 will be better. No, it's going to be even worse. We're continuing the downward slide.
Yeah, and yesterday an article came out about this fucking extra solar object, like the first one they've ever detected that came into the solar system and like shot past the sun and all that stuff and went past Venus and Earth and everything. And it's like this weird shape, and it actually accelerated when it was going away from the sun instead of like slowing down like it should have. And
2021 is also supposed to be a really big year for solar activity. So it could be the year we get that CME. So,
woohoo! Yeah, that's what I'm looking forward to. Do you know? I mean, are you kidding me? When the internet goes down across large portions of the country in any way, shape, or form, people lose their fucking minds. So imagine what's going to happen
when the internet goes out here. When the internet goes out here, there's articles from like local police stations saying, "Please don't call us because the internet is out." Like people call 911 because the internet is out.
That mass ejection will hit and it'll take about 10 seconds and people will be eating each other in the street.
That's the most 21st century thing ever.
And it'll be hilarious. Like the biggest frustration from a CME like in the first hour will be people that are upset they can't get online to post about it.
Yeah.
I have all these great pictures for my Insta. And I just upload it. What?
Yeah.
Why won't my phone turn on?
I took all these pictures of the rioting and the looting, and now I can't post them on Facebook.
I got a nice TV out of it, though. You guys see that picture at that Walmart picture? And it's like this. It's like 2 or 3 huge flats of TVs, and they're like $585 and then like $545, and it's like Walmart's getting ready for that stimulus check to hit.
Yeah. They're pricing all their TVs just under $600.
Yep. I'm looking at a dehydrator. I'm excited. I don't have one.
Nice.
I won't be getting a stimulus this round. I have to claim it on my taxes for next year, or my 2020 taxes when I file them, because I didn't file for 2019 yet.
Oh.
Yeah, about that.
You got the Rona. You should get one anyway.
Well, yeah, I know, right? Well, no, it's because they screwed up because my ex claimed the same dependents as I did, even though I have a court order that says that you can't. And I went to find the court order to submit to the IRS and discovered I don't know where my copy went. So I have to go get a new one. But then all the lockdowns happened and I couldn't go. And I just haven't been able to since, because I'm currently running 2 stores. So like I don't have time to be running down there and dealing with government bureaucracy right now.
Oh, government bureaucracy.
Ugh. I'm seriously wondering why the hell I paid for audit defense. Like that is a scam and a half. Like, I did nothing.
Oh, hey, you guys, guess what? Little news from the home front over here. I have a technician coming to look at my ovens tomorrow. Only he thinks he's coming to look at a range. I don't have a phone number to call to fix
Dirica versus the ovens, chapter 4.
No shit. It's like chapter 12 at this point.
Oh.
Yeah, for anybody listening, that's been a fucking saga all year.
That's Dirica's 2020 story. Like everybody's got a 2020 story. Like this happened in 2020, and it just lingered and lingered and lingered. Dirica's 2020 story is her ovens.
Yeah, my ovens that were just installed last February. Yeah, and that I've been fighting with the manufacturer over since June when they fucking died. So, yeah.
And you got new ones installed like right before Thanksgiving. And then they made it through Thanksgiving.
And then they started doing the same broke shit with the old ones. Yeah. Yeah. It's not that they can't be used. It's that we have to station somebody to keep their fucking eyeballs on them to make sure that they don't shut themselves off, or if they do, to turn them right back on again. Because that's the problem, is they're like spontaneously shutting off. There's some safety feature that keeps malfunctioning on these Frigidairs that does that. So
it looks like it's almost 400 degrees in here. That could be dangerous. Let me shut off.
No shit. I know. You're a fucking oven. I know. But and it's so stupid. Like even having the goddamn safety feature at all is retarded. I mean, I've been fucking baking for 30 years and I've never burned a house down yet. So, and most of that was without your stupid little fucking overthought and under-engineered fucking safety feature.
Well, and that's the world that we live in, though, where everything's got to have all of these stupid safety features that, we want to make sure that the little kids don't get tangled up in the strings for your blinds. So we're just going to remove those strings entirely. And then you just physically lift the blind up and down in order to...
Or here's a plastic bar, which you lose. Or in my case, I got hit with. So...
And I'm sick of all the fucking like bells and whistles too on everything, because I chose one of the least expensive double wall ovens for my kitchen just so that I did not have to put up with a smart device that had all these fucking features that I don't need, and that like give greater access to my home, to the fucking...
See, that's what it is. Google is angry. Google is angry that you didn't go with them.
Yeah.
So they're sabotaging you.
Yeah, I mean, are you kidding? My furnace filters have Bluetooth connectivity.
What?
I shit you not. They have Bluetooth connectivity. They have a little thing on them, and you pull the tab when you install it, and it'll connect through an app on Bluetooth on your phone and tell you the air quality that it's getting and remind you when it needs to be changed. And if you want, it'll even order more of itself through your Amazon to get more.
So that is so scary.
And I was like, what? Because I couldn't figure out how the thing on it was. I'm like, this is weird. What the hell is this? Whatever. And I pulled the little tab because it says to remove use. Okay. I don't know. I don't understand what this is. And I slid it in there. And then when I turned on my Bluetooth later in the day, I was like, what the hell is this thing?
I'm trying to pair with my phone.
Yeah. And you need the app for this. And I'm like, wait a minute. Filtreat has an app? Why do they? You are kidding me.
Your disposable furnace filters have Bluetooth connectivity.
Yep.
That's a new low for humanity.
No, actually, it's not. We have a story about the low.
Okay.
We actually have a story. I was going to save the story for later because it's a really good laugh, but since we're on the subject, we can transition to...
It's a good segue.
So, last week we were gonna record and we were gonna cover Ron Paul's government waste list, right? Just do like a top 10 or something. But we ended up not recording, so I grabbed the best one from that, and we're going to talk about how a federal grant spent $6.9 million to develop a smart toilet that identifies your
anal print. Your fucking anal
print, like
print.
Like facial recognition for your
butthole recognition.
Anus. Yes, it's
You know what? If the government and the media were not here to tell me what I should want and need, I wouldn't have even known that I didn't want or need a toilet to record my anus print.
You know, the problem is that's just opening up for hackers with balloons.
Or just capturing screen grabs and posting them on the fucking internet. I don't want my asshole on the internet unless I'm getting $9.99 a picture.
I was just gonna make an OnlyFans.
If I'm not on OnlyFans, I don't need to show my butthole on the internet. Okay?
Yes. But if I'm on OnlyFans,
if you are on OnlyFans, Andrew, we still don't want to see your butthole.
Yeah, the internet still doesn't.
I run a reverse OnlyFans. Everyone pays me so I won't show my butthole.
Yeah.
It's
pay me to keep my clothes on.
Andrew's OnlyFans is just him combing his beard. Okay, in the latest report of a federal government waste, a project he completes every year, Senator Rand Paul highlights that's one $54.7 billion in government spending that he deems wasteful. Among the items noted this year is the creation of a $6.9 million smart toilet, which operates with 3 cameras, one of which identifies a user's anal print.
Why?
I have to.
I'll get to it. As explained in the Festivus Report 2020, researchers at Stanford University used...
Hang on 1 second. Can I say that I fucking love that he does this as a Festivus airing of grievances? That's my favorite thing about it. Okay.
All right. As explained in the Festivus Report 2020, researchers at Stanford University used $6,973,057 in funds granted through the National Cancer Institute, which is part of the National Institute of Health, to create so-called smart toilets. The purpose of the toilet is to develop, quote, easily deployable hardware and software for the long-term analysis of a user's excreta through data connection and models of human health.
Look, if you want my shit, just hand me a vial and ask nicely. I don't need cameras in the fucking toilet.
3 cameras. 3 cameras.
There are more cameras in the toilet
than there were in Jeffrey Epstein's jail cell.
That's where I was going. There are more functional cameras in that toilet than Jeffrey Epstein had watching his fucking jail cell. Okay?
Oh my goodness.
Great minds, yeah.
Yes. The purpose of the toilet is to develop, quote, easily deployable hardware and software for the long-term analysis of a user's excreta through data collection and models of health. Quote, each user of the toilet is identified through their fingerprint of their distinctive features of their anus, and the data are securely stored and analyzed in an encrypted cloud server.
They were so busy being concerned with whether they could, they didn't stop to think about whether they should.
It gets better.
How do you even develop software?
Why?
Butthole.
That's my question, Jason.
Yeah, there's one guy who's just like staring at pictures of butthole.
No. One of them is a video camera.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah. The toilet operates with artificial intelligence, which explains why Skynet kills us later.
I was just gonna say, this is the reason the robot overlords take over, because we did this shit to them.
This shit.
Okay.
Yeah.
This shit.
Do you know how much shit I've been through? 3,475 pounds. That's how much.
Just today. That was just today.
People.
Quote, the toilet operates with artificial intelligence, includes 3 cameras, including 1 video camera, and features a urine analysis strip. The toilet's AI collects the health data and then stores it in a digital cloud system. For it to work, the, quote, user would sit on the toilet and the hardware's 3 cameras, which use biometric identifiers to securely associate the collected data with the user's identity, such as fingerprinting and the distinctive method of using anal creases, referred here to as an anal print.
Oh my God. Like,
That's-
people used to go to prison for doing this.
Yeah, that's right. It reads, the toilet would use fingerprint technology and a photo of the user's nether regions to identify the user, and the toilet's in-bowl video camera would track various metrics, including the time between sitting and first bowel movement and other metrics relevant to bowel health.
You know, I'm going to have to cast some doubt on the anal print concept here just for a second, right? Because I'm sure your anal print can change over time. I know mine has since I had kids. Because that shit has had stitches in it, okay? From tears from having kids. So I know it changes.
Imagine getting locked out of your toilet because your anal print changed. I mean,
yeah. Yeah. Hemorrhoids, you know, all things that could change your anal print. Anal might change your anal print if it goes by the creases.
Stretched out a little.
And Fam Island does not get one of these.
No, hell no. And the world doesn't need cameras that close to my vagina, again, unless I'm on OnlyFans.
Although this technology is apparently is designed to help monitor a person's health, Senator Paul's report notes that, quote, no matter how good the technology is at achieving its goal, nobody is going to use a toilet that has 3 cameras and takes video of the user's anal print to identify the user. Never mind one that stores that data in a digital cloud that hackers could access.
Nobody's going to. I think 2020 proved that that's not fucking true.
Yeah,
I'm just saying, like, people will submit to any fucking debasement. And you know, the debasement, as long as scientists and government fucking tell them to.
They'll link it to their iCloud, and then be all shocked when all of a sudden another great fappening happens. But now it's just buttholes, just nothing but 35,000 buttholes on Reddit and 4chan. Are you kidding me? Like, you know that's gonna happen.
Imagine the Wikipedia, the WikiLeaks drop.
Oh my God.
I want this to happen, and for like rich important people to get it, and then like have like Joe Biden butthole be a trending Twitter topic.
Yeah. And like 50 years from now, fucking toilet cam pictures of your butthole are gonna have to accompany job applications on Indeed.com.
Oh.
Because it's your fucking anal print. So everybody you work for and with knows exactly what your asshole looks like.
We're gonna need a copy of your anal print for access to the toilets.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, if you want a discount on insurance, you're gonna have to show me your butthole.
Yeah.
It's not even sexual harassment anymore. It's just legitimately like the way the technology works.
Yeah, I think whoever came up with this idea is clearly a sexual predator.
Yeah. Thing is, like, in order to develop an algorithm that can determine that and use that, you would have to have a database of thousands and thousands of butthole pictures just so you can create this algorithm, which means one freak dude in a basement of some software developer somewhere was just going butthole, 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 and then he got caught and went, I'm developing artificial intelligence for
or like that company that will send you like a mold, and you do a mold of your asshole and they'll cast it in chocolate so you can send people your asshole to eat.
See, and that's the way that you'd hack it.
Yeah, I think that's where that company's data went.
Yeah, it's like the 23andMe and them giving
yes, good connection there.
Yeah.
All of the, everybody's DNA stuff. Soon it'll be everybody's fecal matter profiles and their butthole pics. And like, oh, you can't lie to us. We know you're not eating your vegetables, because if you were, then
yeah, nothing is sacred anymore.
I mean, I realize that the idea of privacy is actually like to the level that we envision it as a fairly recent concept. Like it is a thing that did not exist in the 18th century. It didn't exist in most of the 19th century. It wasn't until partway into the 20th century that even started to be a thing, that you really cared that much about privacy for things like going to the bathroom and realistically and having sex and things like that. That's a fairly recent thing.
Yeah, these used to be much more public activities. That's true.
Yeah, but it does exist now, and I don't really want like random people to be able to find out, like, oh, you've been eating way too much sugar. Oh, you're
see, back then though, Andrew, like people there was like a fucking code of behavior for this. You just didn't look. Well, everybody understood. You just didn't fucking look. This is way more invasive and like up into privacy.
That was a code. Like now, if this happened, to be like TMZ breaking news. Taylor Swift's butthole showing.
Yeah.
It's just
up at 11. You'll never guess who has worms.
Vin Diesel really is gay. We have proof.
It should tell people something, that we are having so much fun and doing this so easily, really, coming up with ways to exploit butthole pictures for entertainment and profit. There's something a little wrong with us.
But butthole pictures are the new sex videos?
Yeah.
Well, I was gonna see, if you're somebody who just looks at those all day, would you be a butthole surfer?
I'm gonna not a surf on that one.
Yeah.
But speaking of buttholes, Attorney General in D.C., Maryland, and VA support lawsuit demanding ATF regulate ghost guns.
Oh, for fuck.
Yeah, speaking of buttholes, seriously, you can't, because they're fucking ghost. All right, you fucking can't. That's the whole point of ghost guns. If you regulate them.
If you ever follow the bootleg guns page on Facebook, where they just show, it's just endless, literally all day, endless photos of homemade guns in places where guns are complete, especially like Brazil. Like Brazil is the gun capital of the world. And like they showed the other day, they showed these like homemade like M16A2s that look really damn good. I was really impressed. I'm like, that's that's not actually bad. That's
research Kandahar guns and ghost guns. You can't stop guns.
If you ever swing up into, you're in Pakistan and you go into the Khyber Pass to where make all the guns, you can go there and there are guys who are making guns which will probably kill you if you try to use them, but they might work once or twice, and all it takes is once to kill somebody. So,
and if you're probably dead anyways, if you don't kill that person, then
so
whatever. I mean, but the idea that you could even try to regulate them and track them, like they're literally made in somebody's garage. They're built in somebody's living room.
Yeah, like even if you like, okay, so this is going after 80% lowers, right? This lawsuit. But even if you stopped 80% lowers, you're gonna have to stop what, like blocks of aluminum and lathes and drill presses and files.
And if anybody doesn't know, part of the reason why you can do the 80% lower thing and you can make homemade guns in the United States is because there's a Supreme Court case that ruled that any law that tried to regulate the home manufacture of firearms would be completely unenforceable anyway, and contrary to the spirit of the Second Amendment, and therefore could not possibly be constitutional. That's existing jurisprudence, and this lawsuit is saying, let's just go ahead and ignore that.
Yeah, and what I actually heard this on somebody else's podcast. They mentioned this. They mentioned the 80%. It might have been on an Ammo Land podcast, but they said, like, if the government regulated 80% lowers and said you can't have 80% lowers, the industry would make 79% lowers, or 78% lowers, or 75% lowers, right? Because gun owners and gun owners in particular are really, really good at skirting the law. Right, like the pistol brace.
Because your laws are bullshit, and we know it.
The pistol brace is a response to the government's laws regarding SBRs, right? Short barrel rifles.
The bump stock was a response to all the fucking regulations about fully automatic weapons. Yeah.
Oh yeah. The entire existence of the lightning link and the drop-in auto sear. The whole reason that those were created was because of the machine gun registry. Because originally, if you had one, well, that's not a machine gun. So I'm getting around the law.
The government is only driving innovation in the black market.
Yes.
And you're only making us stronger.
Yeah, government is reactionary. They're very, very, very rarely ever ever act first. So
strike me down and I shall become more powerful than you can possibly imagine.
Yes, exactly.
The Attorney General of D.C., Maryland, and Virginia are supporting a federal lawsuit seeking to have the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms and Explosives regulate the widely sold parts of homemade, quote, ghost guns as firearms. It's an attempt to stop the steadily increasing use of untraceable firearms and crimes across the country. The parts for a, quote, ghost gun can be ordered easily on the internet, and instructional videos show how an, quote, 80% lower part of a gun can be milled and drilled into a fully functional 100% lower. The piece can then be combined with unregulated upper parts, the trigger, the barrel, the firing pin, to make the gun that has no serial number and requires no background check.
Right, well, and the lower should technically be unregulated in an AR as well, under the way the law actually reads.
Yes, because according to how the law reads, the AR lower is not technically a serialized firearms part. It doesn't meet the definition under ATF of a lower.
Well, yeah, and that's one of those weird quirks, because it's been like everybody acts like it has Chevron deference, but it actually doesn't get Chevron deference. It's ineligible for it because the law specifically defines what constitutes a regulatable serialized part. And it doesn't fit that. Because the Chevron deference says that if you don't specifically define it in the law, that then the agency who's in charge of defining it can kind of, or of regulating it, can kind of define within the realm of the spirit of the law. But that's if it isn't defined. It is defined, and it doesn't meet those requirements, and yet the ATF is going, yeah, but we don't care. We're going to regulate it anyway.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right up until you challenge it in court, and then they go, never mind, we're...
which has happened, like 3 or 4 different times now in federal court?
At least 3 that I know of. Yeah. That every single time they have challenged it and gone, okay, well, but
at the federal level, not the state level, the federal level.
Yeah, every single time at the federal level that they've said in court that somebody that's been charged with a firearms crime based around the lowers of an AR has said, well, prove that under the law this is a firearm part, they just abandon ship and leave it alone because they know that they can't. Yeah, and if it's proven that it's not, now there's a legal precedent, and now it's a free-for-all with lowers.
Yeah. But the local attorney generals joined 16 other state attorney generals in a brief supporting of a federal lawsuit in the Southern District of New York by the cities of Syracuse, New York, San Jose, that's here in the Bay Area, Chicago, and Columbia, South Carolina, and the pro-gun control group Every Town for Gun Safety, against the ATF, the Justice Department, and the U.S. Attorney General. The suit targets several, quote, interpretive rulings issued by the ATF to gun part manufacturers in recent years, stating that the unfinished lower and upper parts of the gun are not themselves firearms.
Yeah.
The ATF's website says that, quote, items such as receiver blanks, castings, or machined bodies in which the fire control cavity area is completely solid and unmachined have not reached the, quote, stage of manufacture which would result in the classification of a firearm.
And this is so like them because this is how it works. Their hands are fucking tied by their own rules. So what they're going to do, they can't come into your house and stop you from using this piece of your property in a certain way. So what they're going to do is they're going to play with definitions until you're on the wrong side of the law again. They just want you on the wrong side of the fucking law.
Moving goalposts.
Yep. Every time.
Well, yeah, I mean that's that. You know, and if you listen to some federal regulators and stuff that have been interviewed, they'll even talk about the cat and mouse game between people, that the average person who exists in an industry, and then the regulators, where the regulators will set out a regulation, and so the average person in that industry will find a way to just comply with it.
Yep.
Just comply.
So the ATF has not yet responded to the suit in New York. But in a similar suit filed by the state of California, two fathers of ghost gun shooting victims and the Giffords Law Center to Prevent Gun Violence, the agency defended its interpretation of the Federal Gun Control Act of 1968. The Bureau argued that, quote, a receiver blank may not readily be converted into a firearm because it requires numerous milling and metalworking steps, and, quote, a working gun cannot be produced without difficulty. The unfinished gun parts are, quote, therefore not a firearm without or within the meaning or without the unfinished gun parts are, quote, therefore not a firearm within the meaning of the statute.
Right.
Yep.
So
exactly. So what they're saying is like this, right, is a lower that you could readily make a gun because this is all open. All you got to do is drop parts in, stick a couple of pieces of metal, and boom, this can work. Whereas this has solid metal here. I have to use a drill press and an end mill and a jig and sit here and work, and it'll take me hours of milling metal out in order to make this a gun. This is not readily made a gun. Whereas this, in 25 minutes, I can turn this into a gun. This is going to be hours, and I have to have specialized tools in order to do it.
It's like IKEA furniture versus fucking carving your own out of wood.
Yeah, exactly. It's the difference between making something out of Legos, right, and making like a Lego house, versus actually like getting pieces of wood and gluing them all together and measuring and cutting, and that's the difference. And that was the whole idea behind that Supreme Court ruling that said you can't regulate home manufactured guns, is because all a gun is a piece of pieces of metal and wood and possibly
that have been made into shapes.
Yeah, that have been beaten into shape or molded into shape or whatever else, and you can't possibly stop people from in their own garage taking a chunk of aluminum. Like if you had a CNC machine, you can produce this on a CNC machine, an AR lower, really easily on a CNC machine, very easily. So, well, how are they going to stop that? Are they going to regulate blocks of aluminum of X size? Are they going to
tools?
They've already tried to stop with like the 3D printed files. Like, oh my god, 3D printed guns! It's the apocalypse.
Can't stop the signal.
And then they're everywhere, literally everywhere. The plans are everywhere. Like I could give you 5 or 6 websites right now, just off the top of my head, where they're at.
It's time for us to get a fucking 3D printer, I think.
Yeah. Terrible. Expensive. They're relatively, but you want to get the biggest one you possibly can so that you can actually make cool stuff with it.
Yeah.
Versus like, oh, I'm going to make a little tiny thing. It's
Well, we can start with a tiny cheap one to just learn on, and then
it's Control Pew. He has a starting guide written that tells you which one to buy, how to set it up, and how to get started.
Yeah, and that's knowledge. That's unregulatable. That is knowledge. You can't stop the passing of knowledge, and once it's out there, it's Pandora's box. Once it's been opened and the knowledge is out there, you can't.
Well, that's
stop it.
That's the beauty. That's one of the beauties of the internet is you can share things without losing it. Right? Like I can have information, and I can give Derek information, and I give Andrew information, and they can give information to other people. I still have the information. Derek still has the information.
And if one person loses it to technological catastrophe, they just get it again from the other people that have it.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing. And then they've tried to shut down a bunch of those repositories, those internet repositories of all of these 3D plans and data packs and things. And the problem is, you can try, but even if you were to shut down a server that's holding it, all of it's also backed up on at least 100,000 other devices. And they'll just snap it all together on another server and boot up another server.
And not only that, but guaranteed several people have fucking printed it out and have hard copies, and all they have to do is scan that shit back in.
Yep, and boom, done.
Yep.
That is one of the beauties of decentralized.
Yep.
Well, yeah, I mean, the P.A. Ludi, remember Ludi's book on the practical home manufactured submachine guns.
Yeah, he has a couple books like that, yeah.
Yeah, it's you can get the book for free online, and definitely don't try and buy one. The copy that I got my hands on cost me like $1,200.
Yeah.
Because it was printed in England, and England actually banned it because they can there. So they actually banned the printing of it. So it's really hard to get your hands on a copy, but I actually have a first edition of it when it first came out. But that's all based around the idea of just hand hammering sheet metal and like hand cutting pieces. Like, you don't even need power tools really, except for a drill, in order to make his submachine gun. That's all you need. So like and you need a welder. But other than that, you don't need anything else. So like the fact that knowledge is out there, it doesn't matter what you do to try and regulate any of this stuff. That's been out there since the 50s.
Yeah.
So good luck, asshole.
Yeah.
So even before that, I mean, the information was out there.
And they're still going to try, though. That's what blows my mind. There's no fucking stopping it. So what's the point of even trying?
Well, and all they're doing is they're delaying innovation. I mean, they're increasing innovation in ways to get around the law and to get creative. But because everyone's got to worry about that, it's holding back, new weapons designs and things. Look at the early 1900s, before all of these regulations started to happen. Look at how many designs came out. There's tons of people. Like, if you wanted to build come up with a design for a gun, you could just build a machine gun in your garage.
Right.
And so you had all these people who came up from nowhere. I mean, look at John Moses Browning had no education. The guy had like a 6th grade elementary education. Like, that was it. And you think that guy would be able to get a license in today's world to design machine guns? Like,
no. And it's just it's strangling small business. It's strangling entrepreneurs. All it is doing is creating, these fucking barriers to entry. So only the big players who've been around for a long time will be able to fucking continue doing this.
Well, yeah, and that's exactly who's threatened. I mean, you look at when the AR revolution happened, after the end of the Brady ban on assault weapons, at the end of that, right, and everybody could start buying ARs. Look at the explosion of companies manufacturing ARs and AR parts and everything. And look at what it did to Colt. Look at what it did to Remington. Look at what it did to everybody.
Colt had bad leadership. They were completely reliant on the military contract.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say realistically, I mean, Colt's actually been teetering on the edge of disintegration almost since it was founded.
Well, Colt stopped innovating. That's what it was.
Well, yeah, they hit a point
But
where
they're
they're
still
like,
riding on innovations from 100 fucking years ago.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, don't forget that when when Browning or not Browning, Stoner, when Stoner took the design for the AR to Colt originally, Colt's like,
Oops.
Yeah. Like I don't see a market for that. I don't know what you're talking about. That's kind of dumb. So he's like, okay, then can I have this design even though I work for you technically right now and I'm under contract? Can I just take this design elsewhere? Yeah, sure. Hey, Armalite, how you doing?
Yep.
Oh,
oops.
yeah.
And that's back when it was 20-round magazines and they were disposable.
Yeah, there's the aluminum magazines were intended to be disposable. And then the military decided, well, that's awful expensive. Why would we do that? And tried to reuse these things that are intentionally super flimsy and crappy because they're designed to just be chucked and forgotten.
Yeah.
Oh, they don't work half the time? Imagine that. Holy shit.
Oh, that must be a design flaw. Oh,
Yeah.
well. User error.
Yeah, use flaw. Yeah, well, they're the same ones also who are like, oh, you don't even need to clean them. No?
Always clean your fucking guns.
Yeah, lapsed Mekong mud.
Yeah, exactly. Like, oh no, it'll clean. I mean, well, if you drop an AR in a semi-DI AR in mud, you can pick it up and fire, and as long as the gun is otherwise clean on the inside and the bolt was forward when you dropped it, it will fire, and it will just keep firing. It doesn't care about mud because it blows it all off. And that they're correct. It'll blow all the mud off. It's sealed up. You're fine. You're golden. The problem is that they said that you just don't have to clean it. So as powder's building up in it and all this carbon's building up in it, and they're like, nah, it'll be fine. No, that isn't how that works, dude.
No, that's circle this back around.
Yeah.
The government going after things like it's not even the government. It's specific politicians within the government that are going after this.
The hardcore power trippers.
The power trippers. That's where I was going. It was the control, and they do it under this guise of we care about people. Oh, they used it in mass shootings and this and that and that and this, and these are the same places with like super heavy lockdowns right now.
Mm-hmm.
Like they don't care about people.
No.
Nope. No, they don't. The government has never cared about people, never will care about people. It's never about you. It's never about safety. These lockdowns are definitely not about safety. They're about control. They're about controlling the population and the idea that if we can separate people and keep them separated from each other, they can't ever coordinate. They can't be independent of us because now they have us or nothing.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's a perfect segue for an article, but we can't get to that article yet because I don't want to be angry for the next hour and 20 minutes. So, well, let's go on. Oh, this is a good one. Jerica's gonna hurt herself laughing at this one. So, this is
get the snortometer ready.
New York City. This is out of the New York Post. This is NYC DOE, the New York City Department of Education. School ordered abuse probe, issued report cards for a boy who wasn't even a student there.
Wait, what?
The City Department of Education turned John Tomasi into a phantom student and not only gave him fake report cards, but wrongfully put his family under investigation for child abuse. The 14-year-old never enrolled at Cobble Hill School of American Studies in Brooklyn. He never attended a single class in person or remotely. Yet this fall, the public school created 2 report cards for John, both including teacher comments. His physical education teacher twice gave John the highest grade and said he exceeds standards. His algebra teacher cited, quote, progress toward understanding the connection between proportional relationships, lines, and linear equations, among other skills.
That's a super specific lie. Oh my God.
After 2 months, Cobble Hill put John on a missing student list. On November 4th, the school alerted the City Administration for Children's Services, which opened an investigation of, quote, suspected child abuse or maltreatment, the agency said in a letter. On November 5th,
oh my God, those poor parents.
Quote, on November 5th, I got a knock at the door at 5 p.m. from the ACS worker stating that my son had not been attending Cobble Hill High School. John's mom, Margaret Tomasi, told the Post. Quote, it was very traumatizing and shocking.
Yeah.
And that's because John was earning a spot on a freshman honor roll at Xavier High School, a private Catholic prep school in Bay Ridge, where he had not missed a day in person or online class since September.
Oh my God. And now that fucking family is in the Child Protective Services or whatever fucking system. Like, that's the kind of shit that people lose their jobs, their fucking marriages, like they lose custody of their kids. Like, that's the kind of shit.
And they just made this up in ex nihilo?
Hold on. It gets better.
Oh, stop saying that, Jason.
The family's ordeal spotlights the DOE's spotty attendance system during the COVID-19 pandemic, its failures to keep track of students listed in remote or in-person classes, and practices of keeping, quote, phantom students on school rosters, which generates taxpayer funds. The ACS investigator asked John's parents if they used drugs, were ever arrested, been on welfare, or had a history of domestic violence. The workers asked many personal questions, including what religion they practiced, and looked inside the kitchen cabinets, refrigerator, and freezer to check for sufficient food. The investigator asked John to lift his shirt, pull up his pant legs, and remove his socks to look for bruises or other injuries. The next day, which is a Friday, Margaret Tomasi called Cobble Hill High School to ask why the school never contacted them before alerting the ACS. No one answered the phone. She then left a series of individual voice messages for the principal, 2 assistant principals, a guidance counselor, and a dean.
Yeah.
Quote, somebody needs to get in touch with me. There's a huge mistake with my son, she said in the messages, noting the ACS visit. Quote, he's not enrolled at your school. He's enrolled at Xavier High School. The admissions office can immediately clear this up. Please contact me. And no one ever called her back.
And here's a even creepier part of this. He's never been enrolled at that school.
Yes.
So how do they have his fucking name and his fucking address and their phone number? Like, are they stalking children to put on their phantom student rolls?
Yes. They have. The mom also wrote the principal on November 9th on an email address listed on the school website. Quote, I received a letter from your school October with the schedule. She wrote, I tried to call but couldn't get him on the phone. How did one letter become a child neglect case and now an open investigation? The email bounced back saying there was a problem delivering your message.
What?
Hold on. Meanwhile, ACS contacted Xavier High School, which confirmed that John was attending that school all
along. Oh, God.
Hold on. Margaret was ready to forget the whole fiasco until the family received not 1, but 2 Cobble Hill report cards for John. A report card which first marking period, which arrived in mid-November, gave John grades of incomplete, which means in listed classes English, algebra, principles of biomed, living environment, mindfulness, and global studies. The algebra teacher cited progress.
What's mindfulness?
What? I don't know. Apparently the principal and all those people they didn't take that class.
Yeah, no shit.
The algebra teacher cited progress in 3 areas, blah, 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 blah. So.
And all of this to get their grubby little hands on more federal fucking education funds.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I know when my sister said that when
why did you think I would laugh at this, Jason? This makes me fucking enraged.
Hold on. The algebra teacher cited 2 additional areas of progress by John. quote, understanding the connection between proportional relationships, lines, and linear equations, and representing and solving equations and inequalities geographically. But she added, quote, insufficient work is available to determine the student's grades, despite multiple attempts to contact the student and family.
We know you had their contact information because you gave it to the fucking CPS. Don't say you didn't have the right contact information.
What? And the funny thing is, I know my sister said that when she made the decision to homeschool my nieces, that she got phone calls for, like, she had filed all the paperwork that said, hey, we're gonna homeschool and we're not gonna be sending them to you anymore, and blah blah blah, and like all the appropriate legal paperwork was done and filed and registered. She got a confirmation letter. Yes, we understand you're not going to be enrolling your kid, blah, blah, blah. She didn't go to, the new year registration, nothing else. She got phone calls for the first 2 weeks of the school year wondering where her kids were.
Yeah.
And she's like, everything has been filed. Like, I don't understand what you're not getting here. They're not going there anymore.
Mm-hmm. They did that with me when I pulled, the last time I pulled Micah out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On Thursday, shortly after the Post questioned the Department of Education, the Deputy Superintendent for Schools called Tomasi to assure her that the case was closed and to apologize.
You better fucking apologize.
Yeah.
I mean, how are you going to send 2 different report cards with comments from teachers for a student that is not enrolled at your school?
Which says a lot about the teachers, by the way, that they're just making shit up.
Yeah.
It sounds like the entire fucking system is made up.
Yeah.
They don't even know who's in their classes. They have no idea. Like, are you there even? Are any of these students, do any of them exist? Are they going to school? Do we know anymore? Because I think at this point it's time for a pretty hardcore fucking audit, and it's time for heads to fucking roll.
Yeah.
Like, this shit is exactly why when Governor Walker here in Wisconsin destroyed the educators union and made it illegal in Wisconsin. This is exactly why the teachers got so up in arms, because now they don't have the union to hide behind when they pull shit like this and then keep their jobs. They just get fired.
Right.
So, like, I mean, because these guys are clearly just phoning their days in.
Yeah.
They have no idea what they're doing. Like, do you even have a blackboard in your classroom? Like, can you imagine going to this school and it turns out that no one, in fact, actually attends this school? It does not, in fact, exist at all. There's just nobody there ever, and all these people are getting paid, and they're just like sitting at home. And
well, that's government school for you.
Yeah, it's all fake. It's all fake. It's all being made up. I mean, how do you, and like the specific notes are what get me. Like, that it's like this really specific, like, this is how what he's doing, as if he were there.
Yeah.
What? He's literally never been there a single time. You have no idea who this kid is.
And that math teacher, that shit's clever, because most parents would look at comments like that and be like, okay, if you say so. You know what I mean? Even the kids are going to look at it and be like, all right, I guess. I mean, I don't really remember how I did on this specific thing. So, like, those kind of comments are really easy to fucking slip under the radar if you're just, like Andrew said, phoning it in. You get something super specific that nobody's going to want to look into, and those are the comments you make. That math teacher.
Public education is really important, guys.
Yeah.
The public school teachers work really hard. Oh, yeah, real hard. I bet you could line up 100 kids. Not a single one of them had ever been in this man's classroom. And you could ask him to identify his student, and he would pick out 20-some kids from this lineup.
Yeah.
Guaranteed.
This guy's got the gift of blarney. He's a fucking bullshitter.
He has no idea. Oh my God. How do you not have any idea if this kid has ever been there to a level that you are just making things up?
Yeah. And but what's weird is that what tells me that they all conspired to do this on purpose is that teachers were saying shit like there's insufficient work turned in. Teachers are fucking following that narrative that he hasn't been showing up.
Yep. Yeah.
So not only are they fucking saying specific things that he did do in their class, the times that he showed up, they're also talking about the times he didn't show up. And they're all doing the same thing. So this is clearly a fucking like actual conspiracy to do this, to put together these phony fucking report cards for a kid who doesn't even go to their school.
Yeah, this is a systemic level of corruption.
Yep.
Yeah. Fucking segue masters, I swear to God. Like everything you said for like the last 25 seconds. Mm-hmm. I'm just gonna ditto that. So
okay.
Ditto. And we're gonna talk about Duncan Lemp.
All right.
So this is an article written by our buddy Jim Bovard. I don't know if you guys follow Jim or not, but he's a fantastic follow. He's on my friends list on Facebook. I follow him on Twitter as James Bovard. This is a piece he wrote for the American Conservative in reference to Duncan Lemp. There was the DOJ. I think it was the DOJ. Or it was the county. I think it was the county or it was the DOJ. I'm pretty sure it was the county. The county came out the other day, Montgomery County in Maryland came out the other day and said that they were not going to charge the officers for the murder of Duncan Lemp.
This couldn't have been more clearly fucking murder.
Yeah, so Jim...
it's so clear that even like cops who are like hardcore believe in the system, blah, blah, blah cops said... this is pretty clear-cut murder.
So there was like this came out New Year's Eve. Jim wrote the piece on it. It came out on New Year's Day, but the report from the county came out New Year's Eve, said that they weren't going to. And then a few days before that, a separate county, I think it was in Cincinnati, they said that they weren't going to charge the officer in the Tamir Rice shooting. They said that the video was, quote, too grainy for accuracy.
Too great. He gets out of his car and immediately shoots an 11-year-old.
Yeah, with the BB gun. Yeah, just stop and popped. That's what he did. He stopped and popped.
Yeah.
And they said that the video was too grainy for accuracy, but my buddy didn't write an article about that one, so
okay.
Someone. So this is an article from Jim. It's the American Conservative. Came out on January 1st. He says, why did a Montgomery County, Maryland SWAT team kill 21-year-old Duncan Lemp in a no-knock pre-dawn raid on March 12th? The county released an official report yesterday stating that the violent no-knock raid was justified, quote, due to Lemp being anti-government, anti-police, currently in possession of body arm, and an active member of the Three Percenters.
You hear that, America? If you don't like the government, they're justified in fucking executing you. That's what that just said.
Hold on.
All you need is just to not like government and own possibly guns and body armor, and therefore, immediately, you deserve to be murdered.
The report also noted that, quote, police had viewed several videos showing Lemp handling and shooting firearms.
So?
And?
This is the fucking America.
Say it, Andrew. I know you want to say it.
And there are still fucking people. There are still people who go, well, just trust the system. Not all cops are bad. Just trust the system. Blah, blah, blah. The guy is handling guns.
Just comply and have your day in court.
Yeah, this is the fucking United States. And you have people that are trying to fucking justify, well, he had guns. Something guaranteed in the fucking Constitution. He had guns, and he had body armor, and he didn't like the government. God, having guns and not liking the government sounds familiar. Like maybe the entire founding of this fucking country itself.
Yeah. Literally the whole fucking point of this country, the whole point of it is not liking the government and having guns.
Yes.
Literally.
Distrusting the government and police and appearing in photos or videos with firearms is a catch-all that it could apply to millions of Americans. But it was enough to justify a deadly assault in one of America's most liberal liberal jurisdictions.
Maryland is a fucking shit show.
Montgomery County released the report on New Year's Eve, probably hoping that it would receive a scant attention, but the county's own admissions should propel new demands for disclosures for most of the underreported police killings of 2020. The report details how police attacked the Limp home from two sides. Two members of the raid did a, quote, break and rake on Duncan Limp's front door bedroom window, while the rest of the team entered the house by using a battering ram on the main front door. Another officer used a fireman's pike tool to break the bedroom window closest to the bed where Limp and his pregnant girlfriend Casey, who she recently had the baby, were sleeping. The tool also had a hook that was used to grab off and pull away the blinds so the officers can have an unobstructed view inside the bedroom. One of the windows was broken and the shades pulled out of the way. One officer ducked below the window line as he was unarmed. Why was the officer unarmed? And if the officer was unarmed, why was okay? All right. A second officer, the shooting officer, who was armed with a rifle, then stepped up to the window, looked inside to locate Limp as soon as possible to prevent him from having time to access any weapons that could be used against the SWAT officers. Another team of SWAT cops used a battering ram to smash the front door of the Limp home.
What was he charged with again? What was their excuse for the raid?
Their excuse for the raid was that Duncan Limp, according to a snitch, the snitch said that Duncan Limp possessed a firearm. But the state says that Limp, it was illegal for him to possess firearms due to a juvenile conviction until he was like 30 years old or something.
Pretty sure that's not legal.
The juvenile conviction has not been like like his record hasn't been released, so there's like no proof of that.
Right.
So juvenile records are supposed to be sealed. Like they're not supposed to have any impact on your adult life at all. That's why they're juvenile fucking records.
Yeah.
Yep. The official report serves as a completely different version of Limp's killing than the county police department provided on March 17th. And its initial explanation of the Limp killing in March, the Montgomery County Sheriff Department stated, quote, the officers entered the residence, announced themselves to the police that they were serving a search warrant. Officers gave commands for individuals inside the residence to show their hands and to get on the ground. Upon making contact with Limp, officers identified themselves as police and gave him multiple orders to show his hands and comply with the officers' commands to get on the ground. Limp refused to comply with the officers' demands and proceeded towards the interior bedroom door where other officers were located. Upon entrance by the officers into Limp's bedroom, Limp was found to be in possession of a rifle and was located directly in front of the interior bedroom door entrance. In the new version of the report, Limp was shot 5 times by a policeman standing outside his smashed bedroom window. Montgomery County still refused to name the officer who killed him. The policeman said that he shouted a warning to Limp before open firing, asserting that Limp stood up holding his rifle and turned the muzzle towards the policeman. The family has always maintained that the shots that killed Duncan came in from that window. Were the police lying in March, or are they lying now, or are they still lying?
Well, I mean, how even if they were telling the truth now, how would you fucking know? Why would you believe them?
Yep. Well, we could go to the videotape.
They purposely muddied the waters to the point where there's no fucking.
Yep.
Nobody is.
We could go to the videotape, except that there isn't any, and there were no other police witnesses to the killing of Duncan Limp.
No body cams.
Police body cameras have been one of the most significant reforms of curbing, but there was no body cameras, no video at all, no other cops around when the cop shot Limp.
He shot Lemp. I mean, the bottom line is everybody knows, including the state, knows that he killed Lemp because Lemp didn't like cops.
Yep.
He killed Lemp because Lemp didn't like the government. He killed Lemp because Lemp was his enemy because he didn't think that he had any right to have any authority. That's why he killed him. How dare you not respect my authority? Yep. That's why he killed him. And the government knows it. The other cops knew it. Everybody knows it, which is why they're trying to cover up. And then when the evidence kept coming out that they were lying the first time, now they're trying to do a smarter lie and throw in grains of the truth.
So,
and still lying like fucking dogs. If you still think that cops can be trusted ever, you're a fucking imbecile.
It gets better. Like, Andrew's gonna lose his mind for just a couple seconds here.
Oh no.
Police targeted and eventually killed in part Lemp because they believed he possessed an illegal Israeli assault weapon. Late in the report, as if reciting a minor technicality, the county prosecutor states, and I quote, "It should be noted that upon further review and investigation into the IWI-4 X95 rifle, it was determined that it was not an assault rifle. It appears that Lemp's rifle was a legal copycat made to look exactly like the illegal version of the IWI Tabor X95, but the non-banned weapon was close enough for the government work to justify violently attacking Lemp's home. The falsely predictable for the violent raid barely rates above a footnote in a 17-page report."
So he was not breaking the law. They never took the time to verify that he was even ignoring the fact that the law itself is unconstitutional as fuck and just immoral and wrong. But he wasn't even breaking it. They never took the time to determine whether or not he broke it. But because he might have been breaking a law.
Yes.
And didn't like government, therefore he deserves to be executed.
Yeah.
Is anybody else is anybody unsure here at this point about whether or not we live in an authoritarian dystopia?
Fucking police state.
Yeah, like I at this point, like that's, you know, it used to be a joke. There was a fan film. There's a Star Wars fan film called Troops that was done like Cops but with stormtroopers. They came out back in like the late 90s. It was freaking hilarious.
I think I remember that.
But where in the opening of Cops, the TV show, it's like all suspects are innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. In Troops, it was all suspects are guilty, period. Otherwise, they wouldn't be suspects, would they?
Yeah.
And that was a joke in the late 90s that was funny, but now that's actually the doctrine of police in the United States.
Yep.
Because we suspect that you might be guilty of a crime, you are automatically guilty of that crime, therefore we can kill you.
Yep. And there was no, he wasn't fucking attacking them, he was sleeping. There was no urgency to fucking, like, have to know if this gun was the banned gun right at that fucking moment.
Even the thing is even, and this is really where my knowledge of history makes me so just like in awe of the insanity of our current world. Even the Gestapo in Germany during the Third Reich, even the Gestapo would take in all of these reports and these denouncements of people and would sit down and investigate them.
Right.
And 85% of what the Gestapo got handed them, they handed off to civil authorities because they're like, this isn't a crime against the state. This is just like a regular crime. Like, whatever. They took the time, and we have all the documents, that we can look at. We can say, yeah, they actually investigated these, and they took the time to, talk to witnesses and verify things. Yeah. And in the
modern Western police forces are literally worse than the fucking Gestapo.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
Exactly. The Gestapo is more civil and respects rights better than you ever do.
All right. Jim goes on in the article, and in this piece he says, nothing in the report indicates that Lemp posed a a threat of immediate threat of violence to anyone, not even stray dogs in the neighborhood. The report indicates that police were surveilling Duncan Limp and the Limp residence well before the launch of the SWAT raid. Sadler, this is Renee Sadler, this is the Casey's lawyer, said that police, quote, would have seen him taking Casey to the doctor's appointment or going to the store. They could have detained him during a traffic stop while other police secured the home. That would have been a much safer tactic than to accost an entire family and to raid blindly at 4:30 in the morning in the dark.
Yeah. Can you imagine if we had done this in Iraq?
Yeah. I mean, this is so far outside the fucking ROE that like our troops have to follow when they're engaged with, enemy forces in wartime.
Man, yeah, even in Ramadi, right? During the Battle of Ramadi, we still had this ROE that you still had to knock. You had to identify yourself. You still had to wait for a response before you came in. And when you came into a home, if you're trying to apprehend somebody, you had to use the minimal amount of force possible. Mm-hmm. That was a requirement. That is a listed requirement. You can be court-martialed.
Do you know why it's a requirement? Because the reason it's a requirement is that they're trying not to fucking make more enemies and radicalize more people against your forces.
Yeah. I mean, Trump just pardoned 4 Blackwater people that killed unarmed Iraqi civilians.
Yeah, and that's and that
like
drives,
I mean.
Jesus, I mean, like everybody knew what the trunk monkeys did. Everybody knew that they were loose cannons. Everybody knew that they were fucking dangerous. And when that happened, everybody heard about it and went, yeah, because they're fucking insane. And we all know that because they have no restraints on them at all and they don't care. So, like, we all knew that wasn't a surprise. The fact that we're pardoning them because, but they were doing it on behalf of America. And they committed fucking murder that even those of us
war crimes, serious fucking war crimes.
Yeah, literal war crimes. Yeah,
even those of us who were there were appalled by what they did.
Yep. So
they were denounced by the American military for what they did, and he's now pardoned them. And then you have in the United States where you have police who have a way more liberal ROE than military members,
and way less accountability.
Yeah, less accountability, and are less likely to take the time to learn anything and decide on what they should do than the Gestapo in the Third fucking Reich.
Yeah.
All right, one more paragraph. One more paragraph on this one. It's a long paragraph, but. Jim goes on to say the official report makes clear that Limp was targeted in part because of his political beliefs. Limp is identified as a supporter of the Three Percenters, a far-right militia movement and paramilitary group which advocates gun ownership rights and resistance to the federal government's involvement in local affairs. This is close enough to hearsay in anti-gun Maryland, though it is considered on par with motherhood and apple pie in most of America. Limp was outspoken politically, and his last tweet a couple months before he was killed declared, quote, "The Constitution is dead." The report also gravely notes that Limp has a number of postings on his Instagram page showing him in possession of and shooting different types of guns. The police targeting of Limp was spurred by, quote, "a confidential source whose name had not been disclosed." Yeah.
And like pictures and videos. I mean, he didn't live that far from Virginia. There are gun ranges literally everywhere here. He could have been at a fucking gun range in Virginia.
Yeah, bro, I mean, that's like
hold on. One more like 3 sentences. This is where it gets Big Brotherish. This is where it takes an even worse turn. Hold on.
Yeah.
Hold on. The police targeting of Limp was spurred by a confidential source whose name had not yet been disclosed. The report states, this is the official report. The report states that the source directed police to Limp's mymilitia.com and Instagram profile pages. They used a website and Instagram posts to justify
murdering this guy.
Yes.
Yep, because of wrongthink. This is like This is like KGB shit.
Yeah.
This is,
you know, again, I personally know a former KGB agent. Actually, he was KGB in East Germany. Interesting guy to talk to. Super interesting guy to talk to. He doesn't believe the same things that he used to. I'll assure everybody. He completely doesn't believe the same things that he used to, because he's seen, you know, what the end result was and everything. But from what he's told me, even like the Spetsnaz and stuff would not engage a target without concrete proof.
Mm-hmm.
Even they still cared about, like, but does this person deserve whatever? And they would still do everything they could,
because they still people were still seen as like necessary producers for their system. Like people had at least the dignity of being seen as like useful to their system.
Well, and he said, like, he even said, he was like, you know, the thing is he said that there were so many denouncements that we would investigate and things, of people as spies and whatever. And when we'd investigate them, we always approached it as the very first thing we did was establish, why is this person saying this?
Yeah.
Like, we were always more suspicious of the person.
Does the reporter have any motive for reporting this person?
Yeah. Before we bother
we can
investigate.
Yeah, we can go into like the critical thinking, right? People then, I mean, it's a different time, different governmental structure, et cetera, but like there's a severe lack of critical thinking skills.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you're getting as, and also in today's police officer, there is a it's like a
they're trained for aggression.
Well, no, it's the moral agency, right? It's like putting on that badge, putting on that uniform. It removes through
their
whatever,
humanity.
Their humanity and their moral agency.
Yeah.
Like they don't necessarily feel responsible for the things that they do.
Right.
While they're wearing the badge and uniform.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
And the story,
you know. But I mean, that's one of those things, though, that, like, keep in mind, like, this, we're talking about the place that calls itself the land of the free,
right?
As we're talking about this, and we're comparing it to the Gestapo, the Third Reich, that cared more, the KGB in the Soviet fucking Union that cared more.
Yeah.
In both cases, about humanity and individuality and personal moral agency, they cared more.
Yep.
Well,
than these people do.
You saw the article the other day about the guy in New Mexico who went off the trail to go pray at some like ancient pictographs or whatever, and got fucking tased by a park ranger, by a twig pig.
Yeah.
Why the fuck does a park ranger have a taser?
Yeah, fucking.
I mean, can you imagine handing Ranger Rick a fucking taser? Like, hey, little raccoon buddy, here's a fucking taser. Like, what? Why? This isn't.
Maybe it was for bears and he just used it on a person.
Can you imagine trying to tase a grizzly bear? That's going to work out well.
There's no grizzly bears. There's no grizzly bears in New Mexico.
No, not in New Mexico.
But I'm just saying, like, park ranger generically, like, trying to.
But yeah.
Well,
but there are there's cougars.
Try to tase a cougar and see what happens. It's going to be like, okay, I'll leave you alone. I'm sure it'll be fine.
Yeah.
I'll electrocute a big cat. What could go wrong? Yeah, like, no, he only had a taser to do exactly what he fucking did. That's the only reason that they're hearing it, is to be mean to people.
He literally tased a native ex-Marine who went off the trail to pray.
Yep.
Because he went off the trail.
At a religious
site. A historic religious site for his fucking people.
Yes.
And his ancestral lands.
Yeah. Imagine if you were watching the news and somebody talked about how the fucking Royal Irish Constabulary had beaten the shit or tased an Irishman, for going to a druidic center to pray and to do. People would be up in arms and be like,
you imagine a cop walking into a church and tasing somebody?
Yeah.
Yeah,
imagine. I mean, there are how many the ruins of medieval churches across Europe, right? That have mostly burned to the ground. Imagine, because all that lacquered wood, probably a bad idea.
Hence, living so close to Vikings, anyways.
Well, and like, hence Notre Dame, right? Like, when it burned, it's like, oh, well, that wasn't that big a surprise, because guess why all these other medieval churches are all ruins? Because they all burned to the ground. But imagine somebody somewhere in Europe going to one of those ruins to go pray or go worship, and then cops show up and tase them and haul them kicking and screaming into a car.
Yeah.
I mean, people would fucking riot and demand blood.
I would hope they would riot, at least.
I mean, there are some countries in Europe that probably wouldn't happen. Germany's one of them. France is another. They wouldn't riot. But like Italy, Spain, they'd riot. Ireland, they definitely riot. You do not want to see an Irish riot.
I don't think German cops would do actually. That, though. Yeah, I kind of do too. I don't think German cops would do that too, because the Germans are so afraid of anything that looks like Nazis. They're so afraid to be fucking like linked in people's minds with like the Nazis of the past.
Oh yeah, they're fucking terrified. I mean, the thing is too, is remember that the difference between European police cars and American police cars. European police cars are bright blue and this weird neon yellow green, and it's got that crushed diamond or whatever in the clear coat, so that it reflects really well in the light. It's super visible. You can't possibly miss them.
And U.S. cops have black cars with ghost writing on the side.
Yeah, like black Chargers with just like
there's one here in La Crosse that's a black Explorer with black writing on it that you can only see at night when your headlights are shining right at it, and then it reflects.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like that's the difference. That tells you all the difference you need to know right there. You have, hey, we want people who are in trouble, who need help, to be able to see us and come to us, and it's super obvious when we're there. And then on the flip side, in America, you have, we want to sneak around, and we don't want people to notice, and we don't want people to find us, because we want to catch people, and we want to charge them and throw them in prison. And I mean, in fucking Israel, they have a prison furlough system for people who are even arrested for violent crimes. They get certain periods during holy times to go home to be with their families on the promise that they will then come back.
Yeah.
That.
All right. One more. Just a quick note before we go into the next article. The Nazi reference. It made me think of New York. New York City has what they call the Super Spreader Task Force, right? And it's basically to go undercover and bust big parties. SSTF. What's the German word for the SS?
Oh, the Schoenstaffel?
The Schoenstaffel. SSTF.
Oh, hey. Look at that. They're the Schoenstaffel.
There's a comparison there.
You know what they need is, because they're for super spreaders, right? And they're worried that they're going to kill people. So really, what they need for an insignia is something that shows like, hey, we're hunting death, right? So like maybe like a death's head with like some crossbones, like a skull and crossbones. And maybe because they react quickly, we do a couple of lightning bolts.
That's what I was going to say, the lightning bolts.
All right.
But the lightning bolt, it would be so cool if you could make those into the S's in the acronym.
Yeah, so it'd be the SS.
They can wear all black.
Yeah, they can wear all black because again,
Hugo Boss could design. Hugo Boss could design it.
Yeah,
there you go. He could design. I hear
Hugo
he designs.
Boss is always on point.
Yeah.
All right. Let's
Look, I'm gonna say Nazis were bad people, okay? But They were good-looking people. I'm just saying, and they were well-dressed.
Yeah, that is the worst part about the fact that Hugo Boss was used to design their uniforms. Was just they were stylish motherfuckers.
They were fucking styling.
So all right, let's
Yeah.
I think I only got like 2 articles left, and I have one in reserve, but or a couple articles left. But I want to get this one, and it's just to calm us down a little bit before we hit that next one, because that next one is the complete opposite.
Okay.
Of the good article from last episode.
Okay.
We'll get to that. But
what happened to Andrew?
I don't know.
He's having technical difficulties.
I'll be right back. I'll be back. In a second.
Okay. All right.
He's changing into his Hugo Boss uniform. A woman who parked her tiny home on her parents' property in New Hampshire was forced to move out after the local government said it was illegal.
It's illegal to park.
After graduating from college and moving into a tiny home on her parents' property, Brianna O'Brien found a life-altering letter in the mail, an eviction notice. 6 months earlier, she had decided to move back to her hometown in Hampton Falls, New Hampshire, but said she couldn't afford an apartment in the area. Quote, all of the pieces aligned for me to start looking for a tiny home, she said. While perusing Facebook Marketplace in September 2018, she found the perfect tiny home made of salvaged wood for $29,000. She bought it using a low payment loan. At first, she said she planned to work with the local zoning board to get the house property zoned, but her search advised her otherwise. Quote, I did a lot of crowdsourcing for advice, and the majority of folks who lived in tiny homes on wheels recommended keeping it as far under the radar as possible because red tape is so difficult. O'Brien decided to park it on her parents' property and didn't foresee it being a problem. Quote, it was so hidden in the bushes. And then there's a picture of it literally hidden in the bushes.
Huh.
Okay. However, a neighbor spotted the house and brought it to the zoning board's attention.
Oh, fucking narcs, man.
O'Brien received a letter saying her tiny house did not adhere to zoning codes in Hampton Falls.
Snitches get stitches.
When O'Brien received the notice, she began a conversation with the local building inspector. She learned that her house broke several zoning ordinances. It had no formal plumbing. It had only one form of egress, and it was too close to the property line.
Who fucking cares?
Andrew, are you doing that on purpose?
No, that's just my video being stupid. I don't know what's going
on.
Quote, there is no building code for tiny houses, so you have to get an occupancy permit to get it zoned, O'Brien said. It's a cycle that feeds itself. Without a building code, it automatically breaks any zoning ordinances.
Oh, Jesus.
O'Brien decided to fight for an occupancy permit to get her house properly zoned. She put together a presentation explaining how she would fix the ordinances she broke and proved that her tiny house was viable and safe for full-time living.
And why do you need more than one fucking egress point for a tiny home?
Yeah, it's a tiny home. It's in the name. It is tiny. It's a small space. Why do I need multiple exits from a small space?
Yeah.
October 22nd, 2019, O'Brien presented her case to the Hampton Falls Zoning Board of Adjustment, but this board denied her request, blocking her path to legalizing her tiny house.
And now she understands why everyone told her not to do it.
The meeting notes that the board denied her request for a variance because it, quote, would be contrary to the public interest because the structure is currently existing. Therefore, the modifications are not in compliance and should have been discussed prior to the particular building of the structure.
But wait, they said that she parked it, so it's mobile.
It's mobile.
How is this different than a fucking RV?
Yes. I'm gonna read that. I'm gonna read that quote again. Denied her request for variance because it, quote, would be contrary to the public interest because the structure is currently existing. Therefore, the modifications are not in compliance and should have been discussed prior to a particular building of the structure.
That makes literally zero sense. Like,
let me verify
their
what
preparatory clauses have nothing to do with their fucking conclusion.
Yeah. So what they're saying is that it's not in everyone's best interest because it's already there. So therefore, because it already exists and she modified the existing thing to be in compliance, therefore it's somehow a danger to the public because it was already existing before she modified it.
And because she didn't discuss her modifications,
Yeah, because
even though she did them to follow their regulations.
What? What?
Additionally, the board
No.
felt that the tiny house could diminish property values.
That's not their fucking business to protect.
Quote, they discounted my entire argument, O'Brien said. Quote, I was devastated, embarrassed, and humbled. I was really hoping this board could see the issue as a leverage point for something much bigger.
So the whole city now is an HOA, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
Effectively, yeah, that's what they're saying. They're declaring that they have somehow, the government has a vested interest in protecting the property values. And that's assuming that it does
hold on.
It
actually
and that
does.
they have any
actually,
right.
Hold on. The city actually does have a vested interest in
Because
protecting
of
property
property
values.
taxes.
Because the higher the property values, the higher the property taxes.
Well, yes, but at the same time, though, it's on wheels, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Which means it's a temporary modification.
It's not a structure. It doesn't count as a fucking structure.
Right.
I've bought homes. Okay, you have to count. The only thing that counts as structures that are on a property are things that are built in place that are not meant to be moved. Those are fucking structures.
Yes.
And it may work differently where they're at. I don't know, but I know in Wisconsin, for the most part, if you say were to move a mobile home onto a piece of property, right? And let's say you pour a concrete pad and you get the electrical and stuff connections for it, right? All put in. And then you park the mobile home, but you leave the axles and the wheels on and you park it. Mm-hmm. That mobile home never gets factored in to the property value. Right. Only the connections and the concrete pad do because they're permanent, whereas the mobile home can be removed easily. Therefore, it is only temporary. It is not permanent, and it does not factor in. You can even build a deck onto the outside of that mobile home
as long as it's not connected to the home.
Right. The concrete footings that the posts sit on, and it's not permanent, so you could remove it. It also does not factor in because it is not permanent. It is considered easily removable and a transient structure. Therefore, it doesn't count.
And the tiny home is basically a trailer. It's a fucking trailer.
Yeah.
It's like having any trailer on your property.
They're claiming that a temporary structure will impact the property values when they will not factor the temporary structure into the property value.
Yeah. In the end, she ended up having to move out of the tiny home, and she ended up having to move out of her hometown to find an apartment to live in.
You know what? At that point, I'm moving out of my hometown anyway. I'm saying, fuck you people. I never want a single dime of my tax dollars to go anywhere near you. I never want to have to deal with you again. I'm moving out. I'm going to launch a campaign to convince other members of the community to move out. I'm going to do everything I can to destroy that community and bring it to its knees where there's 30 people left and it becomes unincorporated and go fuck yourselves, you pieces of psychotic shit.
Like, this is the kind of thing that creates villains.
This is actually...
It's not far.
Something like that actually happened not far from me. So there's a town about 45-ish minutes south of me called Reedstown, right? My stepdad's parents actually live there. And they had they're really small town that's barely able to maintain incorporation. They're very, very small. And they had one factory in town, just one factory that's like the main employer in the entire town. That was it. Otherwise, it's a couple of bars, a couple of restaurants, and that's it. They had the one factory. Factory catches fire and burns to the ground. Okay. So they need new land, and they're like, well, we wanted to expand anyway. So why don't you guys sell us the old school? Because the magnet school was built in the late 70s. And the town school has been sitting vacant since then anyway, owned by the village. So why don't you sell that to us at a reasonable rate, slightly below market value? We'll buy it, we'll tear down that building, we'll rebuild it, we'll build an even bigger factory, employ even more people, and won't that be great? And the village goes, no, we want double market value for it because you want to take away a piece of historic Reedstown. It's been falling apart for 30 years.
Yeah.
And when obviously the factory goes, go fuck yourself. No.
Mhm.
And the company says no. They then pack up and move their entire operation just outside of the town and county lines.
Mhm.
Literally within walking distance of the county line to the next county, and build there, and then say, if anyone would like to relocate who's an employee, we will give you extra money to help you relocate into this county. And almost 50 people pack up and leave town to go move closer to the factory and out of the county entirely. And that school is still sitting there rotting because they got so desperate to get rid of it at that point that they wound up about 5 years later selling it for $1 to somebody else just so that it wasn't a county liability anymore.
Jeez.
And the place where the factory stood is still a barren concrete platform.
Oh.
There's nothing there. And all of these houses that these people lived in, none of them have sold. They're all still sitting there abandoned with for sale signs out front. And all these people have moved. So that is an example of going, fuck you hard. For trying to pull your authoritarian bullshit. Bye-bye. And that's what this chick should do, is try and convince a bunch of people to also move. Because clearly these people are insane.
Yeah. Yep.
So, all right. This next story. You remember last week we covered the Dale. What would Dale do? The Irishman on the jet ski.
Yeah.
All right.
I love that story.
The YouTube video got almost as many plays as the MP3 version
of that episode.
So
nice.
But
nice.
The YouTube one's got it's almost 3 times as many views as any 3 other episodes combined. On YouTube. So.
Wow.
So Dale, thanks Dale for that.
What the hell?
Yeah,
thanks, Dale. We
so this
that. The ripples of this romance, the ripples this man has caused throughout the fabric of space-time with his huge romantic gesture.
All right,
we are still putting positivity out into the universe.
It's unfair to the rest of us, right? The rest of us guys got to try and live up to this now.
we have another one along those same sort of lines. Different story. More government involvement, and it's.
And this one makes me sad.
This one made me so angry
when
I first read it, and then it made me really sad.
I don't.
And then it made me want to boog. And then,
yeah.
All right. I'm gonna have a hard time getting through this one.
It's gonna be a rant on this one for me. There's gonna be a rant.
Well, I did skip another story, just so we have time to fully cover this one.
Yeah.
So, the other story that I skipped, by the way, is that U.S. farmers, 40% of their income came from a government paycheck.
Yeah, subsidies.
I'm a farmer. I hate them welfare whores.
Yep.
Yeah.
That article will still be linked in the comments or not in the description. So, husband sues for the right to touch his wife in a New Mexico nursing home amid the COVID-19 pandemic. Santa Fe, New Mexico. New Mexico man has fought the law for the right to touch his wife, and he appears to have won. A state judge ruled to change a health order that had forced the couple apart during the COVID-19 pandemic. The story of Gary Henn, and Anne Severin is one of love, isolation, loneliness, and a pandemic. The couple of more than 3 decades live in the same care facility in Santa Fe, New Mexico, Hen in independent living and Severin in memory care. Before the COVID-19 pandemic hit, Hen would visit his wife multiple times per day, comforting and caring for her.
This reminds me of The Notebook.
Oh, God. Quote, I know that if the tables were turned, she would be caring for me. She is the best thing that has ever happened in my life, he said. But then this spring, a state health order kicked. But then this spring, a state order health kicked in that meant the two were no longer allowed to touch each other. Quote, it's a loss, her isolation and my isolation run in parallel, Hines said.
How do you not want to murder people who are causing this with a fucking axe?
Yeah.
Oh, they all get a visit from the flaming cactus in the ass.
Oh, I'm saying full on fucking Viking raid, man. Like
it's
just axes all around.
Yes. The loving husband took part in a lawsuit in which he claimed his constitutional rights were violated and both his health and that of his wife had declined. He said nursing home staff, even employees who had been exposed to COVID-19, were allowed near her, but he wasn't, even though he's repeatedly been tested for the virus. A state judge sided with Hine, saying New Mexico's current health order is too broad. The state has 3 weeks to go back to the judge with changes or continue to fight it in court. A spokesman for the State Department of Health said the case is still ongoing and would not comment. But that's a picture of
people to die.
Picture of him and his wife.
Oh.
Right.
I just.
These people are at the ends of their lives. And they have loved each other for so long. And now these fucking tyrants are keeping them apart at the very end.
You know,
it doesn't get much more fucking cruel than that.
Yeah. You know, and my grandpa died a few years ago and stuff, and he was able to do so at home and, you know, and with his family and holding his, you know, my grandmother's hand and everything. And all I can think is just imagine if that had happened now.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And he would have been isolated from them, from all of us. Like, and you think that's okay?
There's nothing okay about it.
I mentioned earlier in regards to the Duncan Lip thing, and it was moral agency. You know, this also brings up things like the Milgram experiment. How if you guys remember that one? The Milgram experiment. That's the one where the people volunteer. They walk into a room and they see a person in a lab coat with a clipboard, and they said, "Okay, we're going to ask a question, and if the person on the other side says, you know, doesn't answer right, you got to give them an electrical shock." Right, and the person on the other side, they would scream like they were being hurt, and people went along with it. The volunteers kept going along with it because the perceived authority of the person in the lab coat with the clipboard.
Right.
They were people are conditioned to believe authority, right? That's what it came down to. And even though they knew it was hurting people, they kept doing it because of the perceived authority and the subjugation of moral authority in the name of perceived authority.
And contrast that with rats, where they tested with rats, where if a rat pushed a button, they got a treat. But when they got the food, their cage mate that was on the other side of a little wall would get electrocuted.
Yeah.
And would scream. And the rats would rather starve. They literally were willing to starve themselves to death rather than keep inflicting pain on their friend, their cage mate.
Right.
When rats have more empathy than human beings,
well,
there is something seriously fucking
wrong.
That's
because there's no rat government, and there's no rat belief in authority, and there's no rat collectivism.
There's no rat Joseph Goebbels.
There's no rat media.
There's no rat Dr. Fauci.
Yeah.
You know, but this story is really a microcosm for what is happening all over this country right now, and that is the people are subjugating their moral agency
Mm-hmm.
in the belief in moral and subjective authority, right, or perceived authority. Yeah. People like Fauci and Gavin Newsom and the LA County, medical examiner and all these other, like, people are swallowing hook, line, and sinker these so-called experts. The words that they're saying, and they're spreading it like gospel, and they're following it like gospel
because they're afraid and they need something to cling to. They need a solution.
Well, here's the point, though. Here's the bottom line: is that even if COVID was as deadly as people want to pretend that it is, even if that was the case,
which it's not,
but even if it was, who fucking cares? At the end of the day, peaceful slavery, dangerous freedom.
Exactly.
Right? Well, that's at the end of the day is interacting with someone that you love not more important than living to tomorrow.
I know. And somebody, there was like a comment thread on Facebook or whatever, and some like third party I didn't know had commented on one of my friend's posts saying, talking about how your freedom isn't worth this, your freedom isn't worth that, you have to be responsible, you have to do this, because freedom isn't worth all these dire consequences. And I was like, freedom is worth everything, including lives, period. Freedom is fucking everything. I don't give a shit. I don't give a shit if people die because of freedom. I don't.
If you don't have the ability to make wrong decisions, then you don't have freedom. That's
a free will thing. That's actually and I know that I'm in the minority in the anarchist community, being believing in God and things, but that was the whole point of the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil in the Garden of Eden, was if you don't have the option to choose something bad, then you don't actually have the option at all, do you? You don't have free will. You have to have the choice to make a bad decision in order to have been said to have made a decision at all.
And what people don't understand is that without the bad, there is no good.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that without sin, there is no heaven.
Right. And without dark, there is no light. I mean, it's just one of these things you have to intrinsically understand about life and the nature of life, is that without downs, there are no ups. And then you just fucking flatlined, and then it's not even worth living.
Well,
just the idea, I mean, what drives me nuts about this story is that there are still people who will go, well, but he might have been a risk to her. But who fucking cares?
Yeah, who cares?
Do you think that he, over the course of 30 years, that he didn't maybe bring home a flu from work and get her sick? Do you think that over the course of the past 30 years, he might not have contracted one, or maybe smoked around her, even if she didn't, and might have risked cancer with her? Like, who fucking cares?
Like, even let's devil's advocate on this for just a second. Even if there's a chance that he could get her sick, isn't that his and her decision?
Yes.
Yeah.
Especially since, well, his decision mostly, she's in end of life memory care.
Yeah, she's dying.
How do you know she even wants to fucking live like that? If she were lucid, would she want to fucking live like that?
We covered the story like a month and a half ago out of Canada. They were going back into lockdowns with the quote unquote second wave, and there was that lady who got out of lockdown for 2 weeks or whatever. She was able to see her family, and then Canada went back into lockdowns, and she's like, no, I want assisted suicide. I'd rather fucking die than go back into lockdown.
Yep.
Well, yeah, I mean, my so again, to go back to my grandfather again, because this reminds me so much of my grandparents. My grandfather was diabetic, and when he was dying, we were like, well, he really loves his orange sherbet, and his rainbow sherbet. So we're gonna give him a bunch of that. And he loves Oreos and hasn't been able to have those. So he had a bunch of Oreos, and he had a bunch of this other. I mean, all this sugary shit that he definitely shouldn't have had. Because you know what?
Do you guys remember? Anyway. Yeah, you remember that story that we talked about? I think it was a long time ago, where like a man threw like a fucking meth party for his wife or whatever when she was dying. Is all. Yeah.
Well, I mean that was also the thing with our buddy Demetrius. We lost Demetrius last June, June 2019. Guy was an absolute asshole, right? And he was diabetic and he had all these other issues, but he knew he had these issues and he knew he was on his way out. So he did what he wanted to do.
Yeah.
He lived his life. He said what he wanted to say. He drank what he wanted to drink. He ate what he wanted to eat.
Yeah.
Like he knew he was on his way out. So what's the point in prolonging suffering if that's what person?
And that's what I don't understand is how this, like ever since this narrative started with the pandemic, is this frantic, like desperate need to squeeze every moment out of a biological fucking life, even the ones at the end, even the ones that people might not want.
Oh yeah, that's
like I don't fucking understand that, like making people stay alive whether they fucking want to or not.
I've had this conversation with Shane Radcliffe, our buddy, Liberty Under Attack. We had it on the Vonu podcast where we talk about like the whole idea of Vonu was living in such a way to limit the interaction that you have with outside authority.
Mm-hmm.
And you can do it, but is it worth it? Like once you get to a point where you're not necessarily being happy, but you're doing it, and if you're living in a way that doesn't make you happy in order to achieve a goal, what's the point in living? You're not living at that point, right?
It's not like
existing,
and it's not like
you're a slave,
right? It's not like there's a finish line. It's just the point is living like that, but it doesn't make you happy. So why like we don't even have the freedom to fucking die the way that we want to? That's fucking bullshit.
Well, there's that famous quote, from World War II, with the officer, and I can't remember the exact reference off the top of my head, and I'm sure I have a professor somewhere just crying because I don't remember. But where he said, "You fools, come on, you want to live forever?"
No. Yeah.
And that's the thing is, are you under the impression that you're gonna live forever if you avoid all these things? It's like the people who they don't ever taste alcohol, they don't ever eat sugary snacks, they don't ever smoke a cigarette, they don't ever do all these things ever because they're like, well, but I want to live as long as possible.
They spend their whole life denying themselves every fucking earthly pleasure in the name of prolonging a life that they don't take any fucking pleasure in.
But
what's the point?
That's their choice.
Yeah.
Right?
It is their choice. But then
if they want to live that way, you're absolutely free to live that way.
Right.
But if I
other people
what's the character in Demolition Man? Like I want to eat triple bacon cheeseburgers. Like
I fucking love it.
I want to live.
Yeah. Where he's like, well, I want a cheeseburger, and then he's like eating that, and then I remember her going, "What are you under the impression that that's cow?
That's cow.
Do you see any cows around?" And he's like, "What? ¿Qué es?" And she's like, "Raton."
Rat
burger. This is a rat burger. Okay.
Best rat burger ever.
He just keeps eating it too.
Yeah.
He keeps eating it because he's like, well, that's weird, but all right, it's delicious. That's the thing is there. When you see that constantly in all of these as a thread across all of these like dystopian future things and like cyberpunk. It's a really big theme and stuff. I could avoid all these things. I could live forever by being careful and whatever, and and worrying about my health and worrying about this, but I would rather come into my
enjoy
skidding and possibly on fire and screaming and crashing and exploding than ever wind up leaving it. Like I used to have a T-shirt, and I love it, and I still want a tattoo of it that says, "Don't endeavor to leave a pretty corpse."
Yes. Oh,
Fuck
I'm not leaving a pretty corpse.
Yeah, like fuck leaving a pretty corpse. No, I want to leave the most fucking disease-ridden,
used up,
fucking
Yep.
yeah.
a
Hey,
bad
leave-
liver,
leave-
just
Leave the
destroyed.
axe. Leave the axe buried in my skull. Just carry me up on that funeral pyre and let me burn.
Yeah, fuck it.
Just let
you
it
know
happen.
what? Fuck it. And
It's not like
especially-
I'm gonna fucking need this particular meat suit again.
Yeah.
All right,
And
I'll
we
get
can-
another one on my next go round.
Hold on, and we can even flip this coin and talk about safety, right? Because that's what this is all about. It's all about safety and protection and blah 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 blah. Well, where's that stop?
Yeah.
Right? Like you closed gyms, but you left fast food places open. Right? You can go get alcohol, but you can't go bench press.
Because it's about security theater. It's
Theater.
about the illusion of protection. So I just need to provide you with enough to make you think that you're
That
being
we're doing something
Again.
useful.
Yeah.
Perceived
theater.
authority. Perceived authority. I'm telling you.
Yeah, it's all about
Everybody in this country needs to buy my fucking book. Now that's a segue to the end
Hey,
because
if
we've been
everybody,
on for 2 hours.
if everybody in this country bought Jerica's book, she could afford to be my sugar mama, and I wouldn't have to worry about things anymore.
I will be your sugar
Why?
sister.
Buy Jerica's book. I ain't sending you pictures of my butthole though.
No, you won't have to. Your toilet will for you.
Yeah, exactly.
It'll be automatic.
Yeah.
Your butthole count has been hacked.
Oh,
your brown eye account.
your brown eye, and it's just the letter I, lowercase.
Speaking of that, Casey Anthony has filed for her private eyes license.
Yes, she
Oh my
has.
God.
She is opening an investigative service because honk honk.
Okay, all right.
What are
throw
her
out-
credentials? I know all this shit well enough to not get busted.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, she knows how to get away with it. So she's actually, it's the same principle as why you hire, check fraudsters for, the check fraud division in the FBI and stuff.
Well, that's
Yeah.
where that old
catch-
saying comes
catch me if you
from.
can.
Scratch a thief, find a spy. Right?
Yeah.
Scratch a thief, find a spy. Yeah, they hired thieves to be spies because that was their skill set already.
Yep, because you want people who know how to get away with it in order to look for the people who are trying to get away with it because they know how this works. So yeah, I mean, you know what? Honestly,
It kind of makes sense.
if I was trying to investigate the disappearance of a child, Casey Anthony is definitely one of the people I would hire to investigate. She knows.
But there'll be a link to my book in the description. Jason's always good about putting it in there. So
It's in the,
I
it's, in
gotta
there by,
get-
it's literally in there by default.
yeah.
The same with Andrew's link to the beard
Yeah.
oil care.
It's like the copy pasta that Jason puts at
struggle.
the top of every
It literally is like I have a note pinned on my desktop right here. It's AAFRTD,
Yeah.
and it has all the information in there.
Did you guys
And it-
ever look at our acronym and sound it out like it was a word?
Yeah.
It says farted.
Right. Yeah. I learned today that treason is an anagram for senator.
Yeah, it is.
Yes. Hey, look at that. That's
On that note,
and on that bombshell, it's time to end.
don't red flag us, bro.
Episode, what is it, 119 of the
119,
of the most professional show on the web.
something like that.
Yeah. And again, everything's in the description. Thebeardstruggle.com, code InkAnarchist15. Use it. Get 15% off of your beard care stuff. Don't forget to check out Poppin's Patches. Dave is awesome. He makes fantastic stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And RTA magazine.
Yep.
Dharma's doing good stuff with it. So, on that note, you guys got anything else?
Nope.
Nope.
We don't need to. Nobody wants us to show our brown eyes.
I don't think we need. We don't think we need to have a brown eye
So,
section.
Yeah.
If this episode gets to 10,000 listens, we'll have Andrew show his brown eye on the next podcast.
Yeah.
It will literally open with that. If this gets...
That's like you guys just totally fucking sabotaged the listens and hits on this.
Okay, if this doesn't get 10,000.
Oh no, but you didn't, because this is at the end. They have to listen to the whole thing to hear it. So never mind.
Yeah.
Well, it'll open on a video and just be Andrew's eye above Saruman's temple.
Oh god.
We'll have some hobbits running into it or something.
Here on Anarchy Among Friends, where we redefine third eye.
There are hobbits running into like a giant paper towel roll.
Yeah. Anybody know any lyrics to any Third Eye Blind songs?
I do, actually, sadly. I do.
I probably do.
You want to hum them before I...
No.
You want to start singing before I stop recording?
No.
I'm not singing Semi-Charmed Life ever.
All right. Episode 119. We'll catch you on the next one.
Peace.